Okay. You recording now? Okay. Welcome to another episode of Gimpy Prepper, and our episode this week is cold events. Originally, I was going to do an episode on security around your home, but we had an incident happen that kind of made me change my mind midway, and so I took some time to prepare a different episode instead, and we'll get back to the security for the next episode. I guess to start with cold weather, we need to address the issue of clothing and cold tolerance. When you first go outside, it seems that we can have a little bit of a discrepancy on how the weather feels versus what the weather actually is. And what happened was I had gotten angry with Diana and I went out for a walk. Well, about the end of the driveway, I realized I had forgotten my winter coat.
Mom was in the coat that you see now.
Yes, I was wearing this coat instead of my winter jacket, my winter outfit, and I was like, well, I feel okay. It's warm enough today. I'll wear this one and be fine. And
Nope.
I was not. I got to out to the driveway, and I walked out of the trailer park and started walking down the street, and I was feeling a little bit not well. I wasn't familiar with the symptoms of
Hypothermia.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the symptoms of hypothermia, but I was recognizing that my body was becoming distressed, and I turned around and returned home at that point. By the time I got home, I almost couldn't make it up the stairs.
And that was not cool because Mom also had Cheesy,
Who's sleeping right now.
who's sleeping.
So anyway, that's the long and short of what happened, and I, want to relay this as a what not to do, as I promised you I would occasionally do.
More like a public service announcement.
But I noticed a lot of times that when I'm driving downtown and during the day when the offices are open and stuff, I noticed that a lot of the people have inadequate coats on for the weather, and what I think is going on is people are thinking, well, they're going from the coat to, from the car to the building, and from the building to the car, and their coats are okay for that few minutes, but when they walk downtown on their lunch break, they find that their coats are not quite so warm as originally planned, and that kind of takes a bite in their day. I watch them, they're walking around like this downtown.
That's me at home sometimes even.
In their expensive coats, and it's it just makes me wonder why people put themselves through that. So and then another thing is watch your emotions when you're dealing with hot or cold weather, because high emotions, whether they're anger like I had the other day or extreme happiness or whatever, it can cause you to not feel adequately what the temperature actually is, and you can misjudge and wear the wrong clothing and wind up in trouble later like I did. I guess a good idea would be to learn what the symptoms of hypothermia is. what I was experiencing was I was starting to feel a little nauseated and dizzy and a little bit incoherent. And I didn't get to the point where I was in danger yet, but I was starting to. I was just going, what is going on? Something is wrong, and at that point is when I decided to turn around and go back home. Unfortunately, I did at that point.
I think what Mama was trying to say is her body was kind of screaming at her, saying, turn around, go home.
Yes, it does well to listen to the symptoms that your body is giving you, because if you're not feeling well, it's warning you that something is wrong and you have to deal with it.
Kind of like gut instincts.
Yeah, sometimes it's almost like that. Um, Sometimes when dealing with the weather, you got to know what the weather forecast is and things like that. But you can't always depend on the internet or broadcast or whatever, because if you get in a situation where your grid goes down, you are not going to have the weather at your fingertips. And it is a good idea to be familiar with what weather conditions are possible in your area and have the correct equipment available to deal with it. If the grid goes down, you may want to have a thermostat that does not require a battery.
Essentially, back in the olden days, the mercury ones.
Yes, it used to be mercury. I think it's like alcohol or something like that in them now, but
Not as accurate as before, but still pretty damn good.
Anyway, if you keep one of those thermometers, you won't have to worry about batteries, changing batteries and watching you know, if it's working or not. It'll always work. Unless, of course, you hang it in a window, then the sun shining through is going to make it seem warmer than it is. Hang it on the north side of your building. If you're aware of what your climate is around you before you move in, or you already know if you've lived there all your life type thing, but what weather conditions can happen. We can potentially have a lot of snow here. In fact, they're forecasting 5 to 10 inches in a couple of nights from now, and that knowing what can potentially happen will help you prepare for emergencies. Areas with light snow, you're going to need a snow shovel. You're going to, in heavier snow, a snow blower. Snow blowers are nice. I mean, it's not absolutely essential, but
it makes the load easier.
Yeah, it makes quick work of 10 inches of snow. That's a backbreaker trying to move all that, even on a short sidewalk. I have a friend who lives in Texas, and people don't think of Texas as cold, but there are some days every year where it goes below freezing. And one day last week, she contacted me on the messenger and said, I have ice on my window. What do I do? Do I pour water on it? I'm like, no, you don't. I mean, it is possible to pour water on it and get it taken care of, but if you don't do it right, you'll be cracking your windshield. So I asked her if she could get an ice scraper. She says they don't sell those down here. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, she asked me this very same question last year, and we went through this whole conversation almost word for word last year. So I hopped on Amazon and I bought her one of these for Christmas.
An ice scraper.
Yes, this particular variety is one of the more expensive of the little ones, and I like the more expensive one because it isn't going to break when you start chipping off an actual coating of ice.
Just be careful you don't crack the windshield like I did one year.
You cracked the rear window.
I know, but still.
Yeah, driving down the road and all of a sudden my window fell out. But anyway, having one of these in the car, if they don't sell them near you and you have an area where you do have freezing weather every now and then, you can get it on Amazon for like $5 plus shipping.
Didn't the shipping cost more than the actual thing?
It was pretty close to half and half. But, so anyway, that's a little bit on equipment that you may need for cold weather. Extra heaters in your home. If your furnace isn't adequate for cold weather, you may have some areas that are cold in your home. Even if your furnace is working properly, you may need to supplement with an electric heater. Things like that. Now, having the right clothes is important, but it's even more important to know where those right clothes are when you need them. Now, my mom was always getting on our case because we couldn't find our hats, mittens, and shoes, but she reminded me that a few years ago. I'm like, Mom, your dog was carrying them around the house, and that's why we couldn't find our shoes. And then chances are, if you could find your shoes easily, they were pretty wet because he was one of those Drool King breeds.
Roma was what type of dog?
Great Dane.
Yeah.
Drool King. So, anyway, I eventually solved the problem with kids and their stuff with one of these. You might want to back off. This is just a general office crate that you can find at like Walmart or Target or anything at the before school sales. Or if you want to get one outside, you can pick them up at any office supply store, or you can get them on the Walmart or Amazon website. And the reason I picked these is they're the perfect size. They hold, they would hold the kids' hat, mittens, scarf, a pair of shoes, and a backpack. Perfect size for those items. And that way we didn't have absolute chaos when the kids were getting ready to go to school in the morning. Coat closets, use them for what they're intended. Keeping track of your winter wear goes a long way to use the coat closet that most buildings have. And I even have a coat closet in here, hand me the camera a second. I have a coat closet over there, even in my tiny trailer. They have them. It's a tiny coat closet, but it's there. And if you keep your hats and boots and coats in your coat closet and not junk, you will know where everything is at if you have an emergency that you have to leave the home quickly. And this doesn't always mean a shit hit the fan situation. It could be, your kid fell down and broke a limb and you have to go to the ER with them. You kind of like to know where your stuff is so you can get out of there and get them to the emergency room. For example. So,
Especially in that case where they're in a lot of pain.
It's also a good idea to keep your bug out bag in your coat closet too, because that's usually near the door. As far as packing your bug out bag, you may or may not need winter items depending on what season you may need to bug out. So what I would do is not include your hats and mittens and stuff in the bag, but have them in a well-labeled shoe box in the closet where your bags are kept. And it only takes a few seconds then to grab that box, and it'll have that space available for other things in your bag to have them packed and ready. And if you're bugging out in the middle of winter, you're going to want to put those hats and mittens and extra socks on and stuff right away anyways, so having them in your bag is kind of pointless. I got serious about my hats and mittens and stuff several years ago when I didn't have a car available, and I had to walk to a lot of, especially to the grocery store, And this is what I found. It's a Mad Bomber's hat. And it's got these nice warm ear flaps. And this one, the clip is broke, and I got to get a new hat. But the hat normally will flip up and then clip on top. And then you have a less warm hat if you need. And believe me, these hats are very warm, so I often don't wear. I only wear it in extreme weather because I often get too warm with it.
And Patches also destroyed that too.
Patches, yes. Patches, one of our cats, he likes to lick the fur on the hat, so I have to be careful where I keep it. So that's what I wear in the winter for my hat. Mittens. Where's the other one? Okay. These. A lot of people think of gloves. These are good for
Light
taking
weather.
the dog out to go potty, or when it's like 30 degrees and the snow is starting to melt and you gotta clean off your windshield. That's what those are good for. For bugging out, they're useless. So, these mittens I found it kind of hard to keep my hands warm and be a smoker at the same time. In the car wasn't so bad, but when I didn't have a car and I had to wait for the bus, it was hard to smoke with mittens on. And I got sick of those useless ones, so I found these. They're pop-top gloves. They're the kind that hunters use. And I could open up the mittens and...
This one's also open up, but they're even more of a pain in the rear.
But anyway, I could smoke my cigarette and still have my fingers semi-warm, and then pop the top back on and warm them up again. So there's many reasons why you might want these, you know, especially if you're using them for the original use that they were intended, which is hunting. You know, you can pop the top off to manipulate your bow or your gun, whatever weapon you happen to be using. And so that's why I prefer this type of glove. These I think are actual thin slate gloves, which is a pretty decent warm. Are they thin slate?
Aqua E4 protective gear.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, they're nice and warm, and they keep my fingers from freezing. I did actually have a little frostbite one time, and this actually more relates to not knowing where my winter weather gear was than actually what I had. We had a home, or actually an apartment, but we had no garage, so our snowblower was kept on the front porch. And one day when I couldn't find my mittens when my husband wanted to remove the snowblower to use it. So I went out without my mittens on and grabbed the snowblower and, you know, helped him take it off the porch and everything. And I get back inside and discovered that wherever I touched the metal, I had a mild case of frostbite.
Ouch.
And that gave me problems for about 3 years after that, where every time my hands got cold, it would itch in the spots that had gotten frostbitten. So you want to be careful not to get frostbite too. Pets and cold weather. I had a dog once. She was a Norwegian elk hound, and you can Google the pictures, you know, and see what they look like. They're little tiny, not tiny, but they're not huge either. They're fur balls. It's like they're walking rug in the winter. Anyway, one day it was like about 15 below temperature, and the wind was blowing about 35 miles an hour, and the dog had to go potty, so I let her out. I waited. She didn't come back. Well, I called her in, and she came, and, you know, she usually came when she was called, but anyway, I brought her in, and 20 minutes later, she wanted to go outside again. I'm like, what is the deal with being outside in this crappy weather? Well, I put her out again, and when I called her back, she didn't come. So I had to get on my coat and hat and mittens and everything to go find out why didn't come. Her line was tangled in a bush because she had dug a cozy nest behind one of the bushes up by the house, and she was all curled up in the nest. So,
At least she was warm.
that's a cold weather dog for you, but not all dogs are that lucky, and some of them may need a little help. And we discovered this with my last dog, Hector. He was Pug and Sharpei, and a crazy combination, but anyway, he was good to down to about 20 degrees, and then we had to put a coat on him. And you know, different animals are different. Cheesy's coat looks almost like Hector's, but apparently it's not as thick because he doesn't tolerate the temperature quite as much as Hector did. And we have to train him to wear a coat yet, but we'll be doing that soon. I think he's going to need a little bit warmer coat than the one that we bought for Hector, so I'm going to attempt to make one out of a blanket. I don't know if that's going to work because I don't know how to sew very well. I don't sew very well. I know how to sew, it just doesn't translate into very good sewing.
Mom's pretty good at sewing buttons, though.
Yeah, buttons, that's about it. But I'm going to attempt to make a coat out of a good stout blanket for him to try and keep him warm. I'm not very familiar with a lot of species of animals, but some cats can tolerate some cold, especially if they're ones that are allowed to roam around outside in the winter. Then they'll build up a bit of a winter coat that'll protect them. But if they've been kept indoors, you're going to have to find some other way of protecting them from the weather if you have to take them out. Some cats will tolerate you putting clothes on them. If I'm just going from house to car with them, I'll put a towel or a blanket over the top of their carrier and then preheat the car, and they don't have to worry about getting cold at that point. Boots and socks. Around here you want some he's dreaming. The dog is making a really weird noise. It sounds like he's like barking. Yeah, he's barking his dream. Anyway, boots. A lot of people think that, you know, the biggest badass boots that you can find is appropriate for cold weather, but
Not always the case,
it's
right?
not always the case because you could wind up overdressed and your feet will sweat and get cold anyway. So it's a good idea that if you do live in a climate where you need big bad boots, that you have a less big bad pair of boots for the warmer weather so that you're not dealing with sweaty feet. And the same goes true with socks. If always have plenty of socks because you never know, you know, how cold it's going to get. You can, if you get some that are a little too large, you can double up that way, you know, if necessary.
And some people's feet sweat more than others.
Some people's feet are warmer than others, yes. And I had a friend who had to make a 2-hour road trip to the doctor in like sub-zero weather one time, and it's like, okay, it's really cold out and I'm going to have to wear socks or my feet are going to get cold. However, with the socks on, my feet got too warm. So what I did was I took an extra pair of socks with me so that I could put a dry pair of socks on when we got to our destination and all was good. So for prevention of cold weather problems, you know, always be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of how to predict weather a little bit. If your grid goes down, you can't get a hold of weather forecasts. Like I said before, have an analog thermometer to read the temperature. You can get ones that you hang inside, and a wire goes out and
I
will
thought that was
register the temperature.
digital, though.
You can get analog ones like that too. Grandma had one when I was a
Really?
kid. Yes. So those are nice because you wouldn't have to go outside to read your thermometer, and always have the right equipment on hand to deal with snow and ice and cold or whatever happens to be prevalent in your area.
Especially when it comes to ice on the sidewalk, make sure you have plenty of sidewalk salt,
Oh yeah,
which we're out of.
yeah, we ran out of sidewalk salt. Actually, I think we got more, but it's in a box. It's
I
in a
don't.
box in the spare bedroom.
What good that does us, though.
Yeah, we call the spare bedroom the mountain because when we moved in here, we just shoved everything in the spare bedroom, and it's like it was at that point wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling boxes. So we're still dealing with that. I guess that's about all I have tonight. And stay warm and stay safe. Have a good night. Stand by. Go.
Hey folks, this is Diana, daughter of the Gimpy prepper. When Mom was talking about her case of hypothermia, I was really panicky. Part of it's because of my autism, and that causes me to have a hard time keeping a level head. Anyways, I called Grandma, asked her for advice, and we decided that calling the ambulance was the best course of action. Well, go figure, the ER was completely full of people, no rooms, and so Mom and I were sitting there for what, 2 hours? Two
Yeah,
and a
it
half?
was 2 hours when Grandma walked in.
It was 2 hours when Grandma walked in, and then we went up to the front desk asking how long it would be. Said what,
Hour and a half to 2 hours.
hour and a half to 2 more hours, and it's like, forget that. So
by then I had warmed up quite a bit and was feeling much better.
yeah, and so we decided to cancel the services and walk out. So. And that was a pain in the rear end because by the time that was all done and over with, we were both extremely tired and really hungry, right, Ma?
Yes.
Because the whole argument started because I hadn't made supper yet. And it was like, I'm working on it, Ma. Well, apparently I didn't work on it fast enough, but it's kind of a moot point now. Mom's back home. She's not hypothermic. She's not in a coma. Everything that's... For all that, I'm grateful for that she's just in as good of a condition as she'll be in. So... But like I said, well, Mom says that autistic people have a hard time keeping a level head. Is what, genetic, or
It's related to the autism.
it's related to the autism, and well, it just autism and high stress does not do too good, right, Mom?
No, I don't. I'm trying to teach her to pause a moment when she starts feeling panicky and take a deep breath and ask herself what is most important to deal with and how the best way to deal with it.
And that's still, I'm having a hard time grasping that concept even.
Yeah, she gets 1,000 things running through her head when she panics, and that makes it very difficult for her to sort out what actually has to be done first.
Mm-hmm. But we've been putting it by ear, and obviously since I'm on this episode, my cold is pretty much over with. Still coughing up skunk, but I don't know why that is, but at least my cold's over with, and my throat's no longer sore, so. Huh?
You gonna wrap it up now?
Well,
You look like you're falling asleep.
yeah, I'm trying to stay awake while I'm doing this, and it's really hard, so I should probably sign off now and say goodnight, y'all, and hope you have a nice Christmas and happy holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas, because I probably should save this for a different episode, but Mom's a pagan and prefers to celebrate Yule, which is on the solstice. But Grandma insists on us celebrating Christmas with her anyways, but hey, a free meal is a free meal.
We go because it's family.
That too.
So,
And you
gotta
can-
spend holidays with the family.
Yeah.
So, we should probably wrap up so you can get to bed.
Yeah. So, have a happy holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas if you do. And have a good night.